I want to bring in former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, joining me live from the capital, Islamabad. You have called on your supporters to march peacefully on Islamabad on May the 25th. Why? And what do you hope to achieve?
Well, Becky, like any political party, when you feel there is a huge injustice done in a society, then you protest, do peaceful protest. So, God willing, on 25th, Pakistan will witness one of the biggest ever protests in our history.
Calling for this march, as a former Prime Minister, when a new government is already in place, can or is likely to be perceived as hostile. How far are you willing to go?
Peaceful protest is part of a democratic process. The reason why we are protesting, Becky, is number one, that this was a conspiracy to remove the government. It was a foreign intervention. It was an intervention in the domestic affairs of Pakistan. And secondly, not only was a democratically elected government removed through a conspiracy, we have been replaced by a bunch of criminals. 60% of the cabinet, which is sitting right now, is on bail. The Prime Minister was about to be sentenced in a corruption cases of billions of rupees, and his son, one has become the Prime Minister, the other one has become a Chief Minister. So what bigger injustice in a society than this?
Let me deal with a couple of things that you have just alleged there. Let's start with the following. Pakistan's information minister has said in response to your call for a march, quote, Imran Khan can scream, whine and cry as much as he wants, but the next general election will be announced by the government in collaboration and consensus with all allies, and that your announcement, quote, is a direct effort to sabotage Pakistan's negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and we know how difficult the economy is at present. Your response?
Well, Becky, let me just put certain facts on the table. Number one, in the last 2 years, in our last 2 years, we lasted 3.5 years. First year, we inherited a bankrupt economy, and you can easily Google that it was the biggest current account deficit in our history. Second year, we were hit by the coronavirus like the rest of the world. In these circumstances, Pakistan posted in our third year 5.6% growth rate. In this fourth year, it's 6% growth rate, which is one of the highest in our history. So to say that the economy had anything, which is what they're blaming us, we left one of the fastest growing economy in Pakistan's history. All sectors were growing, the industry, the agriculture, IT. So since this government has come in, the confidence has gone because there are a bunch of criminals. And of course, the currency is falling rapidly. Stock exchange has gone. And they rushed to the IMF.
Right.
Now, we have nothing to do with this. It's the conspiracy that got us here.
Right. Let's be quite clear here, with respect. Despite the economic growth that you have just laid out, the economy is still in crisis. Are you intending to run again as Prime Minister in the next elections? Are you confident if you do so, you will win? And how will you solve Pakistan's economic crisis?
Becky, the Pakistan's economic crisis didn't happen overnight. It's over past 3-4 decades that the mismatch between our imports and our exports, dollars coming in and dollars going out, that always created the current account deficit, which means that we needed to go to the IMF to borrow money because we ran short of dollars. Now, when my government came in 2018, you can check, in our history, it was the biggest current account deficit. We then salvaged the situation. In the third year, we had brought down the current account deficit. In fact, it went into a surplus. Then we were hit, like the rest of the world, with this commodity super cycle where the prices of oil more than doubled. That's when we had a bit of a problem with our current account. But all our economic indicators were positive. Never has Pakistan, well, in 20 years, where in 2 consecutive years we were growing 5.6% and then 6% this year. So this change, this regime change, which I'm afraid was sponsored by the US, and unfortunately, these guys became part of this regime change when they pulled the rug. Now the economy has gone in a tailspin. And the biggest ever protest, Becky, let me just tell you, never have the people of this country come out in such large numbers protesting against this regime change as right now. It's never happened before.
In the weeks leading up to your ousting, you repeatedly insisted, and you continue to do so, that a US conspiracy was hatched against you due to what you say is your independent foreign policy, not least towards Ukraine. The US has denied that. What evidence do you have to support this claim, sir?
On the 7th of March, Becky, Under Secretary of State in the US, who's responsible for South Asia, he calls our ambassador, a meeting between our ambassador in Washington. He tells our ambassador, in an official meeting, there are note takers on both sides. He tells the ambassador that unless you get rid of your Prime Minister Imran Khan in a vote of no confidence, which, by the way, hadn't been tabled as yet, but he seemed to know about it, he said, unless you get rid of him, Pakistan will suffer consequences. And then goes on to say, of course, if you get rid of him through the vote of no confidence, all will be forgiven. Such arrogance, apart from anything else. By the way, Becky, this guy should be sacked for bad manners and sheer arrogance. Imagine telling a country, an ambassador of a country of 220 million people that you get rid of your prime minister. So this is where it started. The next day, this vote of no confidence is tabled in our parliament.
Imran
And then
Khan,
follows...
why have you never made this public before? You are being very specific about what you allege was said.
Well, Becky, I put it in front of our cabinet. The cipher was read out in the cabinet. There are minutes of the cabinet. Then I presented it in our National Security Council, where all the service chiefs were present. Why did I present them? Because this was a blatant intervention in the internal affairs of Pakistan, a regime change.
As Prime Minister at the time, did you get in touch with the US President, with the US Secretary of State? What happened?
The National Security Council decided to give a démarche, protested to the US in Pakistan and in Washington. We issued it. This is all minuted. Then we presented it to the Parliament Committee. Then the Speaker of Parliament. Then the President of Pakistan, who has this cipher, he sent it to the Chief Justice of Pakistan that there should be an inquiry held in this blatant interference in the internal affairs of Pakistan.
Pakistan's new foreign minister says the United States and his country are entering a new engagement after what has been years of strained relations. And you and I have talked about those strained relations under your premiership. Do you believe, for the sake of Pakistan, that it is better to have a good relationship with the United States?
Becky, I had perfectly good relationship with the Trump administration. It's only when the Biden administration came and it coincided with what was happening in Afghanistan. And for some reason, which I still don't know, they never got in touch with me. There was no US ambassador to Pakistan. I have no idea. But look, my point is very simple. 220 million people of Pakistan elected me. my first responsibility is to the people of Pakistan. My responsibility is for the well-being. We have 50 million people living below the poverty line. So when Russia offers us 30% discount on oil and 30% discount on wheat imports, India does the same. India is part of the Quad, part of the strategic alliance with the US. India imports oil from the US, but for some reason, this was taken against me as if I was being anti-US or anti-American. I'm not. I have never been anti-American. I have never been anti any country. I have always believed that if I was elected by my people, their interests are paramount. I mean, if we have 50 million people below the poverty line, should I not be worrying in times of international inflation? Should I not be worrying about them? That doesn't make me anti-US.
On Ukraine and on Russia, you were in Russia meeting President Putin the day he announced the war in Ukraine. The optics didn't and don't look good, do they?
They didn't, Becky, but let me explain to you, this visit was planned a long time back, and all the stakeholders in Pakistan were on board. The military wanted hardware from the Russians. We wanted oil. There was a gas pipeline which was being negotiated for the past 6 years before my government came in. So this trip was planned a long time before. How would I know that the day I land in Moscow, President Putin decides to go into Ukraine? I wasn't supposed to know that.
Do you regret that trip now?
I would regret if we had known about the invasion and then I had gone in, I guess I would have regretted it, because I do not believe in military solutions. I have opposed all military ways of achieving political ends. So, but I wasn't supposed to know. And as I repeat, our foreign office, our military, we were all on board that this was the trip we needed for the benefit of people of Pakistan.
By that stage, sir, and with respect, it was clear that there was an enormous military build-up and that there was the potential for President Putin to invade. Did you talk about Ukraine? What did you discuss with President Putin?
Becky, I discussed of Pakistan and Russian ties issues like the gas pipeline, which we are running out of gas, and that was being a project decided 6 years earlier, and of course oil, getting cheap oil and wheat from Russia. But look, Becky, countries always think about their own interests first because the people elect us. Now, do we not have the right to stay neutral in contests? Because we were part of the US war on terror. 80,000 Pakistanis died in that. My policy was always after that we will be part of a peace process. We will not be part of any conflict. We want to stay neutral. If India can stay neutral, which is a strategic ally of the US, why doesn't Pakistan have that luxury?
Do you condemn President Putin's invasion of Ukraine?
I repeat, I do not believe in military solutions. Even when I was there, after I came out of the meeting, I gave a statement. The official statement was, we do not believe in military solutions. So I've been like the military solution for 20 years in Afghanistan. I never believed that was going to solve the issue in Afghanistan or, for that matter, Iraq. I always believe military solutions cause more problems. They have unintended consequences.
You've talked about cheap oil from Russia. India purchased cheap oil from Russia, a move you hailed on Twitter, lauding Narendra Modi's government for sustaining pressure from the United States. Do you believe the war in Ukraine has actually opened an opportunity for a thawing relationship between India and Pakistan?
No, Becky, that's not. Our problem with India and Pakistan is only one. It's Kashmir. What is happening in Kashmir, and I want to sort of, let me just add on. We were asked to condemn what happened in Russia. Why has the US and all the allies not condemned what's going on in Kashmir? Why don't they condemn India? So why is it selective? Why is it that we are expected to take positions? But when we see these violations of human rights in Palestine or in Kashmir, why is this selective? So if the world order was such that any aggression on any people were condemned by all, I would be in the forefront. But when it is selective, we have watched what is the brutality that is going on in Kashmir since 5th August 99, when they just violated all human rights. Virtually, people were put under siege. We never heard any condemnation by the US or the Europeans, who expected us to condemn what was going on in Ukraine.
Imran Khan, the US, let me repeat, has rubbished the notion that they have been involved in regime change in Pakistan. You continue to assert what they suggest is a conspiracy theory here. Do you genuinely believe that the US has been behind a regime change in Pakistan?
Becky, why would I want to blame the US if I did not have hard evidence? Now, look, number one, can you imagine? Look, me, say Donald Lu, US Undersecretary, you, the ambassador of Britain, and I tell you to remove Boris Johnson, and unless you remove, there'll be consequences. And if you remove him, everything will be forgiven. This was an official message with no takers given to our ambassador, message received by me, by our president, given to the Chief Justice of Pakistan. So, first of all, this is real. We have the minutes of the meeting. We can't release the cipher because of the codes, which are, like the WikiLeaks, they expose the codes and that all your foreign correspondent gets exposed. That's why we can't do it. But the minutes of the meeting are all there, a cabinet, National Security Commission. Secondly, before this happened, before this meeting with Donald Lu and our ambassador, the US Embassy was calling members of my party who were some of the backbenchers who were not happy. They were having meetings with the US Embassy. What were they meeting them? And they were the first ones who then jumped ship. And they were the ones who then offered $1 million each to buy my other members of parliament who actually jumped ship later on. Why would the US Embassy be interested in backbenchers of our party? So this was going on for 3 months before, until this, and then Donald Lu's conversation with our ambassador. The next day, the no confidence motion is tabled in the assembly. What do you think?
You have made some significant allegations there. When
it's not allegations. We have
hard
this evidence. Hard evidence? You mean the minutes of our cabinet? We can show the cipher between our ambassador, the conversation between them. But because it has, WikiLeaks exposed the code. That was the problem. All the ciphers then, secret documents became public. So we can't do that. But we have the cipher was read out in our cabinet, in our National Security Committee. The president has sent it to the Chief Justice of Pakistan for this blatant interference in our internal affairs. So it's real.
You talk about no takers on either side. What do you mean by that when you use that term?
It means it's an official meeting when there are no takers on both sides who are recording the meeting.
Will you make those public? I mean, you've talked about where they exist.
Sorry, what? The cipher? I've explained to you.
The minutes of the meetings, that you have. No, I understand that. But you say the minutes of the meetings are on record in Pakistan.
Yes, the cabinet meeting, the National Security Committee meeting, they are public. The National Security Committee had 2 meetings, and both times they said this was blatant interference in the internal affairs of Pakistan. They issued a démarche to the US Embassy in Pakistan and in Washington.
So is the current government an American implant?
It's with their blessings. And, you know, the painful thing, Becky, is not just that everyone, we all call it imported government, but the worst thing is there are a bunch of criminals. For 30 years, these guys have been plundering the country. 60% of the cabinet is on bail.
Imran
The
Khan,
Prime Minister and his son...
Which you've said
hold on,
a
they were
number of
supposed to
times.
be...
Are they an implant? Are they a US
No, but hold
implant?
on. They were supposed to be sentenced. Well, they're clearly pliant because, you know, they would toe the US line. You know, remember, when the two prime ministers, the two governments, when they were in power for 10 years, there were 400 drone attacks on Pakistan. Not one of them ever complained against the US, which is a total violation of our humanitarian laws, all international laws. You can't be judge, jury, and executioner. The two heads of state were there. They never uttered one word against the US. They never complained at this. I mean, it's a travesty that there were 400 drone attacks.
Right.
Innocent people were being killed, but they never uttered a word.
Imran Khan,
so in other words, yes, they are puppets.
Imran Khan, will you run again? Will you run again as Prime Minister in the next elections?
Whenever the next elections take place, not only will we run, but I can predict right now that this will become the biggest party in Pakistan's history, because people are so incensed and feel insulted that these criminals have been foisted upon us, who have been plundering this country for 30 years. There is anger in Pakistan. And unfortunately, because of all this becoming public, the cipher, Donald Rue's comments, who should be sacked for bad manners, there's anti-Americanism. Because you know that so many regime changes, whether US, like in Iran, Prime Minister Mossadegh, like in South American countries, when unpopular governments are foisted on a people, the resentment then goes against the US. And unfortunately, yes, there is anti-Americanism right now.
Your supporters blame the military establishment for your ouster. You previously had a good relationship with the military. What happened? And do you blame the military?
Look, what we want is, rather than me blaming people right now, I know all the characters involved, but what we want is that the Supreme Court of Pakistan, already the President of Pakistan has written him sent him a letter citing this cipher, and all we want is that there should be a proper inquiry into it, so that this never happens again. That, you know, a foreign interference leading to a puppet government of criminals, it should never happen on any country. Forget about, this is the 5th most populated country in the world, and it is deeply insulting for us. So that's why I feel there should be an inquiry, and all the players involved should be exposed.
Imran Khan, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure catching up with you again.
Thank you.
I don't think this will be the last time.
Thank you.
So please stay in touch.